Hey everybody, it is May the 19th and we are on the downhill side of this class by a lot. So we've only got a few weeks left. I'm not sure which class it was, but I know one of my classes thought that the places worksheet was due yesterday and it's not. So as soon as I found the problem, I fixed it. If that's not you, then congratulations, you didn't have to panic that was due. It is due on June the 8th, which is the same day that your map test is going to be due, by and large. So just keep that on your back burner as you're going through it. It can be filled out electronically if you want to just type all the stuff into like Google Sheets, or if you have Excel, then Excel, that's fine also, or you can handwrite it. Just to re-emphasize or reinforce the idea of what you're supposed to do with the sheet. Again, you're supposed to put what is located nearest in your opinion based on like what you know about where it is. So for example, the Aleutian Archipelago, you would say it's near Alaska if you know where Alaska is. If you don't know where Alaska is, then you would say in the northern part of North America, or on the northern part of the Pacific plate, or on the north part of the Pacific Ocean near North America, or something like that. Something so that while you're studying, you can find it, rather quickly in your brain. I can tell you that I gave it to, well, not the same test because I have to create it in each school separately. Don't even get me started. But a similar test to yours was made at Fullerton College. They just did it because this is their finals week. They're done this week. They also started earlier than you, so don't get too excited. And people are doing rather well. They're getting like each one's worth 2 points, so there's 100 questions, and so they're getting like 180, 188, I think was the highest. So they're doing pretty well, which is good. Because remember, it's worth 200 points. So if you do really well on it, then it sticks and you drop one of the 150 point ones that don't count for as much, that has a lower score. So your goal should be to really do really well on it, unless you already have an A. If you have an A, then you probably don't have to worry about it. You can just whatever. But if you're, not in the grade that you want, then doing really well on this map test will help considerably, if that makes sense. I'm not trying to downplay the map test, but just wanted to, be truthful, keeping it real since 1974. So, all right. I haven't graded your tests yet. They just came in last night. So I will go ahead and do that. I did go in and clean things up a little bit in the course. What I mean by that is you no longer have access to your first test, I think, because I turned it into a survey and then took the points and put them into a separate assignment that you didn't turn in. And the reason is if I don't do that, then what inevitably happens when I say drop the lowest score is if you did really poorly on the free response part, or the free response part wasn't worth as many points and you did poorly on it, it gets dropped and it doesn't have as great of an impact as dropping an entire test. So it all works out in the end, I promise. I'm not trying to do you dirty. I'm trying to actually help you out. That's how it rolls. So when you'll see your test scores in there twice for a little bit, just so you can see your test. So for test 2, I'll leave those up for like a week and then I'll convert them over to that, and then your test will drop, just so you can see the test in case you had a question about what was going on with it, if that kind of sort of hopefully makes sense. All right, so that's old business, as they'd say in Robert's Rules of Orders. Now let's move to new business. So this week we're going to talk about extreme weather, and we're going to get into climate change, and we're going to get into, all of that fun stuff that kind of gets to how everything we've talked about before now impacts humans, and how humans are impacting it in a more specific kind of, hey, let's focus on the future. I was listening during Earth Week, used to be Earth Day. Now it's like a whole week dedicated to the Earth. Not that every day shouldn't be dedicated to the Earth, just like every day should be dedicated to moms. Like, why do we only have a day to celebrate moms? We have an entire week to celebrate teachers. Come on. All right. So anyways, I'm a teacher, so I can say this. I mean, come on. So this week we're going to focus on a little bit about extreme weather. We're going to talk about physical geography today and focus. I mean, we could talk about, earthquakes and glaciers and all this cool stuff that's going on right now. If you're not paying attention, you should get on Sherry's listserv because she's got some great stuff that I get to be a part of, and I feel so excited when I get to see it, because otherwise I'd just be bogged down and never leave whatever I do and not see really cool things like arches falling and glaciers moving, which hasn't happened in like 60 years in places, and you can actually see it move. So anyways, this week we're going to focus on climate change and extreme weather. So extreme weather is when weather does really crazy stuff like hurricanes and tornadoes and hurricanes that happen more frequently than they did in the past, and extreme heat and extreme cold and things like that. And so I thought we would start this week and go over, I have some slides. I stole them from Al Gore, the former next president of the United States, who didn't quite make it. If you've seen his Inconvenient Truth, you might understand the joke a little bit. So we're going to watch his because he does it in 10 minutes. And I delivered it to another class and it took me 48. So I think he's just a little more concise, and then we'll chit chat about it after, and then we'll go from there. So he's, better order, and I can take a break and, just sit here and watch too. So he says he can do it in 11 minutes and 27 seconds. It took me over 45 minutes to do it because I'm distractible. All right, so let's see here. Sharing this screen. Good. Optimize. Sharing. Okay, and here we go. Fingers crossed.
The climate crisis affects us all, and we all have the power to help solve it. I'm standing here on my family's farm in Carthage, Tennessee, where I first learned as a young kid from my parents' connection to this land, and that's what originally sparked my passion for the natural world. These days, when I'm presenting my slideshow in communities all around the world, I do my best to talk with every audience about the incredible onrushing impacts of the climate crisis in each local community where I'm presenting, and just as importantly, about the solutions to the crisis that are now readily available everywhere. I also try to convey my story and why I personally feel so moved to help protect our climate balance. We've now trained more than 12,000 climate leaders to carry this message around the world. And now it's your chance to join the movement. Please be a part of this sustainability revolution that's sweeping the world. This is the first picture of the Earth fully illuminated that any of us ever saw on the last of the Apollo missions, and it changed the way humanity thought about our common home. And in the decades since, we have been trying to solve the climate crisis. By now, there are only 3 questions remaining. Must we change? Can we change? And will we change? So let's take them one by one. First of all, must we change? The science community all around the world has been telling us for a long time we have to, yes, and now Mother Nature is telling us, but let's take a look at why. The sky is not a vast and limitless expanse the way it appears viscerally. It's a very thin shell of atmosphere surrounding the planet. And we're putting into that thin space 110 million tons of man-made global warming pollution every 24 hours. The way it works, most people know, is that the energy from the sun comes in the form of light, and it warms up the planet, and then that heat energy is re-radiated back into space, and some of it is caught by the natural greenhouse gas layer, and that's a good thing. But we're making that layer much thicker, so more of the outgoing infrared is being trapped, and that's what is driving the temperatures up. And there are many causes of man-made global warming pollution. Agriculture's a part of it, and the management of forests and transportation. But the main part of it is the burning of fossil fuels, which provides more than 80% of all the energy the world uses. And it's been going up, particularly since World War II and in recent decades. As a result, all this heat's being trapped, and the air temperature's going up quite dramatically. And this is causing record-breaking years. 16 of the 17 hottest years ever measured with instruments have been since 2001, and the hottest of all was last year. And of course, heat itself is a problem in many parts of the world, many parts of this country. But on a global basis, more than 90% of all this extra heat energy is going into the oceans, and they're heating up pretty rapidly. And this makes the ocean-based storms like hurricanes and typhoons and cyclones stronger and more destructive. And it also disrupts the water cycle because the water vapor coming off the oceans is increasing very significantly as the oceans warm. And that's carried over the land and falls in much bigger precipitation events, both rain and snow. So we get these record downpours, and that leads to record flooding. And it's been happening all over the world. Every night on the TV news is like a nature hike through the book of Revelation now. And the same extra heat that's disrupting the water cycle and making the downpours bigger is sucking the moisture out of the soil and making the droughts deeper and longer and more destructive. And when the land dries out, the vegetation dries out, and that means when the temperature goes up, fires increase. Now we have these mega fires. This was a city of 100,000 people in Canada destroyed by fire last year and evacuated. The climate-related extreme weather events worldwide, according to the insurance industry, have been steadily going up. Now, same heat is also melting the ice in Antarctica and here in Greenland. This is a huge glacier in the last century and completely melted now, and NASA has precisely measured the decline in the mass of ice on Greenland and Antarctica, and all that extra melting is raising sea level. This was in Miami, Florida, a little over a year ago, sunny day, no rain involved, but it's a high tide. Miami's the #1 city at risk in terms of assets at risk, along with Guangzhou, China, New York, and Newark, and these others. If you look at cities at risk by population, a lot of giant cities in developing countries are very much at risk. In fact, the Department of Defense in the U.S. has long warned about refugee crises connected to the climate crisis and pandemic diseases and water shortages and food shortages. Where food is concerned, the extra heat stress is now beginning to decrease crop yields from rice and corn and soybeans, and this is beginning to be a serious problem. It's also a medical emergency because the relationship between humanity and the bacteria and viruses has always been affected by climate. And with temperatures going up and the climate being disrupted, we're seeing tropical diseases spreading poleward. Of course, the transportation revolution and air travel has a lot to do with this, but the places where diseases like Zika take root, that changes with the climate. We never had problems with Zika. I never heard of Zika when I was growing up. It's a serious threat, and the main mosquito that spreads it is now covering a wider range in a warmer, wetter world. And the virus incubates faster, and in the warmer temperatures, it bites more. So the doctors are very concerned about this. And of course, the biologists are also concerned about the extinction threat. Up to half of all the land-based species with which we share this planet are in danger of extinction, according to the biologists, in this century unless we make changes. So all of these threats, including some like ocean acidification that we haven't even covered here, help to answer the question, should we change? And for those worried about the economy most of all, it's the #1 threat to the global economy, according to the World Economic Forum. So do we have to change? Yes, we do. But what about the second question? Can we change? If we have to change and we can't, that's a formula for anxiety and depression. But fortunately, the answer to this question is very, very exciting and positive. We've got the solutions available to us now. Look, for example, at renewable energy. Wind energy was predicted to give us 30 gigawatts by 2010. Actually, we've exceeded that prediction by 16 times over. There's an exponential curve with wind power being used all over the world now. It's really quite dramatic, and it could supply 40 times as much electricity as the entire world uses. And where solar energy is concerned, it's an even more dramatic story. The predictions 15 years ago were we'd have 1 gigawatt per year. When 2010 arrived, we exceeded that goal 17 times over. And last year, we exceeded 75 times over. This is really taking off like a skyrocket, an exponential curve, like computer chips and mobile phones and flat screen TVs. It's very exciting because the cost is coming down so rapidly. In some regions, it's now less than half the cost of electricity from burning coal. In many countries where there's no electricity grid, we're seeing solar panels on the roofs of grass huts. And in a developing country with great policy, Chile, they have seen a slow, steady growth, but this is working. Look at what's under construction and approved for construction in Chile now. This is incredibly exciting. And there are many regions in the world that are poised for this kind of breakout. 13.5 gigawatts. This is incredible. So every hour, the Earth gets as much energy from the sun to supply all of the energy the entire global economy uses for an entire year. That's really dramatic. So if we increase the fraction of that we can harvest and use, we're really going to make a lot of progress. Batteries are beginning to spread quickly throughout the marketplace. LEDs are predicted in 8 years to virtually take over the market, 95% of all light bulbs. All these automobile manufacturers are now offering or preparing to offer electric vehicles. This is another part of the sustainability revolution. So, can we change? Yes. But what about that final question? Will we change? Well, here too, there's exciting news. A year ago, December, at the Paris negotiations, virtually every nation in the entire world agreed to phase down greenhouse gas pollution to net zero emissions as early in the second half of this century as possible. And we're seeing marches and demonstrations and demands at the ballot box for the kinds of changes that are needed. So please use your voice and your vote and your choices in the marketplace and in your life to speak truth to power like your world depends on it, because your world depends on it. We need your help. Thank you. Thank you.
right. So, one thing you need to understand about what net zero means is it doesn't mean that we have zero emissions. What it means is that companies are offsetting what they're doing by doing something that reduces carbon. So if they're going to release 10 tons of carbon, then what they have to do is or purchase something that's going to restore 10 tons of carbon, right? So they need to offset the problem. And so I love when people say, oh, we're going to reach net zero. And it's like, yeah, net zero does not mean we're stopping pollution, we're stopping emissions. It means that, if a car creates, 50, like I said, tons, then they have some carbon offset that they have purchased that restores 50 tons. So maybe they, plant a forest or something, right? So it's risky, in my opinion, to think that net zero is going to save us, because it means that we can continue to do what we're doing, but, restore. And yes, it's better than not doing anything, but it always bugs me. It just, it's a illogical fallacy, in my opinion. Anyways, I will put up the slides that he used. He actually, the whole slideshow is available. You have to sign up for it. So I'm sorry, I cannot put up the slides he used because they're huge and they're in PowerPoint. So if you want them, you just have to, I'll put the link to where this is and you can download these slides. I can show them to you. But I tried to put them up and it said this file is too big. And so, and a lot of the stuff is underneath the slide. So let me share this screen instead. So you'll see in the notes section, if you decide to download these slides, there's a notes section, and they, it has talking points, what he basically was talking about. The picture he didn't show is this one, which is probably the most influential environmental photograph ever taken. And so this is taken by an Apollo astronaut. This one's called Earthrise. And it was taken in an era defined by assassinations and riots and war and political turmoil. And no, it wasn't 2020, although it sounds vaguely familiar to 2020. It was 1968. And we saw this picture that was taken on a mission that was, deemed impossible. And everybody thought it would end in catastrophic failure and become, just a fine ending to a horrible year. But they made it. They created this photo. And when people saw the Earth, this blue ball, so to speak, and we looked at it, we were like, wow, that's where we live. And you can't see any of the issues and none of the politics and no borders, no nothing, no, it's just sitting out there in this vast, infinite piece of space. So this was before the Carl Sagan thing, where he takes it even further and we're just a tiny little speck in this vast, this is, so, it's just really cool that there's a lot of stuff out there for you to explore and learn about this planet. So this is a picture he also didn't share, I don't think, that shows the Earth's atmosphere. And the importance of this picture is to see how thin it is. It really is a very thin shell. If you think about taking the Earth and shrinking it down to the size of an egg, the shell that's on the Earth is like the crust, and the inner part, you know, if you've ever hard boiled an egg, there's that fine film that's inside the egg, not like inside, but like just inside, that sometimes you get stuck when you peel off the shell. That's the size of our atmosphere. And so, you know, it's really just this phenomenal thing that does so much for us, that separates us from the other planets in our solar system. Oh, let's see. There was one other slide I wanted to talk about. Was it this one? No. No, he talked about that. Talked about that too. So I think that's the only thing. I like this picture. This pay-as-you-go solar power. It's a grass hut with a solar panel on it. It just, it tickles my heart. And you have to understand, these people didn't have any electricity until they put this little solar panel on their hut. And so I like to think that we can come up with good solutions for our problems and try not to push our problems into other areas. I just recently finished a certificate program, an online certificate program. Each spring semester, I do some personal growth, professional personal growth. And this semester it was to get my certificate in GIS. I have a bachelor's in it, but it's been a long time since I've done GIS, and I wanted to, you know, take a look and see what was out there, see how much had changed and stuff like that. And I did my project on, instead of putting solar panels in the desert, putting them, you know, doing like rooftop applications, or, you know, applying them over the tops of freeways that, you know, we're stuck in anyways. Wouldn't it be nice if you were stuck in the shade while you were stuck on the, you know, freeway? You're like, you're going to Orange County, and instead of just the sun beating down on you, you're covered in shade because the entire freeway is covered in solar panels. So I don't know. I just thought it was a cool idea. It's not feasible because, you know, then the companies don't own the solar panels. Who gets the energy? Blah, blah, blah. You know, where's the profit? You know, yada, yada, yada. But anyways, so these slides are out there, and I will give you the link to them. The other thing that, if you're interested and you have some spare time and you want to read or you want to watch the Al Gore movie, the first one is called An Inconvenient Truth. It was put out in 2007, I think, ish. But they created a sequel to it. The sequel has a lot more like solutions, and it's more up to date. The first one is almost like a, hey guys, we need to agree that climate change is really a thing. So many still feel that it's not a thing, or that it's not man-made, or that it's not something we can do. And one of the interesting things I learned during Earth Week this year is one of the reasons why people feel that climate change is not something we need to be concerned with is because when we talk about the climate changing, we're talking about it happening so far in advance, like in the future, that everybody's like, well, that's like 50 years from now. Like, why should I care now? Like, I got to put food on my table. I got to, you know, in our particular case, deal with this virus. I've got to, you know, go buy more toilet paper, or, you know, I got to take care of my kids. I got to take them to their soccer practice. I gotta, and all these I gotta's get in the way of us thinking about making change. So this week's lesson. Let's see here. I don't want to speak out of turn. I can't remember if it's this week or it might be next week that I do it. Let me check. Crossing my fingers. I don't know why this is going so slow. Why aren't you where I thought you were at? Okay, that's not where I was. Jeez. All right, so back to screen sharing. All right. So, so this week you have some stuff you're going to read. So, how climate change is fueling extreme weather, and extreme weather and climate change, and then what I call weather gone wild. So this talks about all of the, oh, you can't, that's right. I have to fix this. Okay. I will make sure this gets fixed. Weather gone wild. I'll turn it into just a PDF. I'm sure National Geographic won't care. This is a cool article from National Geographic that talks about all of the different like storms that have happened in the last, 10 years. I think it came out in 2016 or 2017. I can't remember. But I'll get that link fixed so that you can take a look at that. All right, so this week is as I like to affectionately call, a loosey-goosey week. You're going to read these 2 things and watch these 3 things, and you're not going to turn anything in, but you should do it anyways. Yep, I'm not holding you accountable for it. Does not mean you shouldn't do it. There are going to be test questions on your final about climate change, and some of the material that's located in here, I went and made questions for and put them into the question bank. So I would highly recommend and encourage. I didn't know how to like assess it. I didn't want to give you like a quiz on it. I want you to do it, but I want you to do it in a way that you're not panicking that you only get 6 minutes to answer the 6 questions or something like that. I want you to leisurely look at it. I've curated that particular thing. In class, we used to watch the entire Inconvenient sequel. And I don't think it's necessary in this given environment. I think if you were to read those 2 articles and watch those 2 shortish videos, that you would get the same out of it than watching the whole video. All right, your discussion this week is on extreme weather. And so you are going to choose a severe weather phenomenon. Do, 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 do. All right, so that's why it's important to know what they are. So let's say you want to do it on hurricanes, right? So you're going to create one of the following things, all right? So this is kind of different than it's been in the past. We're just using the discussion for doing it. So you're going to describe what it is. So make sure it's in extreme weather phenomenon. Tsunamis are not weather phenomenon. They are extreme, but they're not weather phenomenon. Earthquakes, not extreme weather phenomenon. Okay, so first you got to know what they are. The readings will help with that if you're not sure. You're going to, pick one of these things so you can create a flyer to inform people about the phenomenon, right? You could create a model, like, I don't know, like modeling a tornado, which can be done using 2 2-liter bottles and stuff like that. You can look it up. How do I model a tornado using bottles or something like that, and explain what's going on and what happened and stuff like that. So you make a short video or something like that. You could make a kid's book that talks about, of course, you have to know what kids' books look like. I always love when people make kids' books and I'm like, okay, this is extremely scientific. You're missing the point. A kid wouldn't understand this. So you're trying to explain it as if you're teaching like a kindergartner about your phenomenon, because a lot of weather phenomenon are, you know, a little scientific-y, right? So maybe you can make it a little less scientific-y. You can make a comic strip that covers the important information about your, you know, chosen severe weather thing. I'm thinking like graphic novel-y type thing. I have a whole graphic novel on climate change, which is where I got that idea from. Create an informative video. You could create a PSA about what to do, you know. So basically, be creative, come up with some way to, you know, do all the things I'm asking for. Describe how it forms or what causes it. Who's most affected by it? Are there any warning signs or precursors? Like, is there any way to know that there's a hurricane coming? There's a hurricane coming. Describe what problems can exist. So with hurricanes, you get like, you know, tons of rain and tons of wind and storm surge and, you know, flooding and all these other things, right? Come up with 3 interesting things about it. You know, maybe it only happens in one particular place. Maybe, you know, stuff like that. List some of the most, like the top 5 most destructive occurrences of that weather phenomenon. Okay, so the 5 largest hurricanes or the 5 biggest typhoons or something like that. And then, are there other names for it in other parts of the world? So for example, a hurricane is the same as a typhoon, which is the same as a cyclone. And it all just depends on which ocean it's in. So hurricanes happen in the Atlantic Ocean, typhoons happen in the Indian Ocean, and cyclones happen in the Pacific Ocean. So it's funny because I've always said California can't have hurricanes, and that's true for a number of reasons. One of them is that we don't have the right type of, we have a cold current off our coast, so if our hurricane were to hit us, it wouldn't really do anything. It would be more like a, we call it, you know, like the Pineapple Express, or, you know, oh, we're having rain today, you know, in extreme wind, right? But it wouldn't really be a hurricane because it would be a cyclone. Because they're not called hurricanes in the Pacific Ocean. Just saying. All right, so that's kind of what we're looking for. Again, oh, I think I have a link. Look, there's a link right here. Let's see what it says. I hope this has all of the severe weather phenomenon. Look at that. Thunderstorms, tornadoes, floods, lightning, hail. Okay, when they get to be that big, stay inside. Damaging winds, and then extreme like winter weather. You can also do like extreme heat, would also be one. So in addition to winter weather, you could do like extreme heat events that occur. So there are others, but these are like the top ones according to the National Severe Storms Laboratory. So any questions on your discussion? So you're going to do your original post, whatever that is, a PowerPoint, a flyer, or whatever, and then look over other people's stuff and comment, say, hey, you forgot to talk about how to prepare, or, you know, stuff like that. I love, right now I'm getting a lot of reviews back from my students, and they're like, I find it unreasonable that you have us turn in things on a Friday and a Tuesday. I'm like, I haven't graded you down if you don't put your discussion post in nicely. I just suggest highly that you get your discussion post done on a Friday so that people have time to react to it. Anyways, try and get your original stuff up by Sunday so that people have time to give you feedback on it before Tuesday, if that kind of makes sense. I mean, the sooner you put it out there, the sooner someone can react and respond. And, you know, and then, so give people feedback. Hey, you forgot this. Hey, I really like this. That's a great children's book. Or wow, that's really talking over my head. I can't imagine a kid understanding it. So you can give them constructive criticism / feedback, and look for that from your peers before the deadline. Because once I see it, if it's not right, then I'm gonna be like, yo, hello, you should have fixed it. So get it up there. I'll get in there and give you some comments too if I, you know, make the time. but I should be able to get in there. Depending on when you put your stuff up will depend on if you get any feedback from me because of my schedule. So not only that, the stuff should be in your own words. It should not just be copy and pasted from other websites. So you want to kind of take the language and turn it into your own stuff. Don't just put huge paragraphs from the internet because anyone can Google what is a thunderstorm. I'm looking for your interpretation. Google is now asking me questions. Your interpretation of the information and put it at a level that you would understand or people like you would understand. Or if you're doing a children's book, children would understand. Okay. And so that's the bulk of the activity. And then let's see, what is the quiz? Oh, you're going to watch this video. And then this is the best quiz ever. Okay, you want to write. So either take notes while you're watching the video or write like a summary paragraph that makes me believe you watched the whole video. Don't just say, I watched it, because I'm not going to trust you on that. I'm sorry. I love you all. I really do. And trust is not an issue between us per se, but demonstrate somehow you're getting 25 points on this quiz. So it's a quiz that looks like a discussion, but it's not a discussion, if that makes sense. I'm just using the discussion forum as a way to grade them quicker than a quiz. But it counts as your quiz. So there's no questions. You're going to watch this video. It's a great video on extreme weather. You might want to watch it before you decide what you're going to do for your discussion topic for the week. So this week, like I said, is very loosey-goosey. You have one assignment that is to do your discussion-ish thing, to watch this video and write stuff down that kind of makes me think that you watched it. You could do like a review. I really enjoyed it. This is what I learned. You know, I hated it. It was stupid. There's a better video out there. You should show this instead. I'll take that too. But you need to, you know, demonstrate what you learned. Remember, that's what quizzes are for, to check for understanding, right? And so I want you to actually watch the video. Probably the best way to do it is to take notes, but if you don't feel comfortable taking notes, then just summarize what you saw, what you liked, what you learned, all that stuff. So it should be a good sized paragraph if you're going to write a paragraph about it. I don't have like a word count. I know what the video is about. So make sure you talk about, you know, enough that makes me feel like you watched the whole thing. So I can give you a 25 out of 25 on a quiz. And then you have readings and watching videos, and that's it. It's a lot of, I'll agree, there's a lot of kind of like reading, but it's not long reading in the sense that it's like an article or, you know, stuff like that. So any questions on what we're working on this week? I wore my dinosaur tie today. When I went to the pet store, they complimented me. Said, "Oh, I like your bow tie." I said, "Thank you." I had to go to the pet store so I could feed the snakes and the fire belly toads. They want their crickets. Just saying. I think my next pet's going to be an octopus. Because it sounds cool. All right. Wow, you guys are very quiet today. It must be sticker shock from your test, right? You're all like stunned by the test. You're still in like test anxiety shock. You haven't come out of it yet. Well, it is 10:45, and as much as I want to hang out with you, and I will, I don't have anything else for you today. So get to work on your extreme video watching and your readings. I will get that Weather Gone Wild article up from the National Geographic because I can see it normally. If I was on my other computer, I'd be able to see it, but I haven't logged into my National Geographic account apparently since I turned this one off. So I will get that up ASAP. So probably before, I'd say probably before 11:15. And so you should be able to take a look at that. Any other questions? All right, well, have a lovely week. I will see you all next time.